Ideas for Impact, a new podcast where innovation meets sustainability head on. Let's take a fresh look at how we do business. Changemakers are innovating solutions to some of the toughest challenges we face in our world. In the process, they are creating their own mark on industry. Our guests are rebels with a cause. They are tearing down barriers, redefining success, and leaving a mark on their industries. Our guests are the disruptors who refuse to settle for business as usual. Join us to unravel the lessons learned behind their failures and their triumphs and uncover the hidden opportunities for positive change. Co-hosted by me, Joanna Buczkowska-McCumber, and my friend, Deborah Host. Did you know that over 1.5 million young people participated in the global climate strikes in 2019? Young people demanding urgent action on climate change in countries all around the world. And because of their actions and their voices, the world started to pay attention. Earth Rangers, an organization that is also focused on youth, has itself mobilized over 250,000 young environmentalists to protect wildlife and habitats. Earth Rangers is a powerhouse in conservation, empowering youth to truly become stewards of the environment through education, hands-on activities, and research. And we're so excited to be joined by President Tovah Barocas to share the inspiring projects and the extraordinary young people that are driving change for our planet.
Let's start by having you share more about Earth Rangers. It's an incredible organization. Can you tell us about what it is and what it offers?
Sure. So Earth Rangers, we call ourselves the Kids Conservation Organization. So we're very focused on not only educating kids about biodiversity, conservation, climate change, just sustainability issues in general, but also really empowering them to take action and make a difference. The organization has been around for about 20 years in Canada, and we've just recently expanded into the United States. A lot's changed in the last 20 years. When Earth Rangers was founded, environmental education was really not particularly prevalent in schools and in kind of formal education. Don't get me wrong, there's still a long way to go. There's a lot more that we could be doing and have more consistent curriculum and things to really give kids the basis of knowledge that they need about the environment and how it's changing. But we have come a long way, and people know a lot more about these issues now than they did 20 years ago. And so the way that Earth Rangers' mission has kind of evolved in that time is that there's almost kind of developed another barrier to environmental action, which is more around environmental anxiety and this increasing feeling of hopelessness that kids have about the future. So at Earth Rangers, like I said, we're educating kids about the environment, we're empowering them to take action, and we're making sure that they have a sense of agency and hope and confidence in their ability to make a positive difference. And that's really what the mission is. In terms of our programs, we reach kids through many different mediums, but one of our main ways is through school assemblies. So we visit about 850 elementary schools across Canada each year with a live show about biodiversity and conservation. And, there's only so much you can do kind of pedagogically speaking in 45 minutes. So the goal of the show is just to get kids super pumped about becoming an Earth Ranger. So at the end of the show, we say, who here wants to be an Earth Ranger? And all the kids raise their hand, and we kind of know we've done our job that day. And then we encourage them to join our free membership program by downloading the Earth Rangers app, signing up for a membership, and then through the app, they gain access to and engage in a whole plethora of environmental activities that they do out in the real world. And I would say one of the most powerful aspects of being an Earth Ranger, or about Earth Rangers more broadly, is the self-identification that kids start to kind of take on right away. Like they call themselves Earth Ranger Ella, Earth Ranger Mohammed, Earth Ranger Tovah, like they really feel like they're part of the brand, and it becomes part of their identity. And that's just like a really powerful thing.
That's amazing, Tovah. And, I can attest to that I've been in sustainability and impact for a long time, maybe just under 20 years. But it is so true. 15 years ago, we weren't talking about sustainability like we are now. And certainly this like accessibility to all of that knowledge is just so much more broad and widespread spread now. And it's interesting because like bringing all of this to young people, we have got more tools to actually utilize to bring this information to young people and get them engaged, which is so exciting and so needed. I'm super curious to know, to learn more about you and how you got into this work and, what really drives you in being part of Earth Rangers and what your particular role is as well in the organization.
So I have been with Earth Rangers it'll be 15 years this September. So quite a long time. I've held a lot of different roles in the company. I'm currently the president of Earth Rangers in both the US and Canada. But I started out more as a fundraiser and, government relations, communications, external relations, kind of like always the front facing kind of person. My background is not in sustainability or the environment. It was more in fundraising. But once I started working at Earth Rangers, I just developed like just a strong kind of passion for the cause and affinity for the organization. And, it's really become a very important part of who I am.
It's amazing, Tovah. And you obviously are an organization that is focused on creating impact in the world. How do you define impact at Earth Rangers?
So we define impact really at an individual level, the impact on the specific child or family, parents, like the participants themselves. I think our objective is over time to really see societal shift, but the way that we measure the impact of the programs is on the participants themselves. So we do a lot of research and evaluation of kids and how they like their levels of knowledge about the environment, their reported actions on the environment, and also their overall kind of feelings and outlook on the world, on not only the environment itself, but also other social causes, like how is engaging with Earth Rangers really impacting them as an individual. We have a kind of a joke at Earth Rangers where we call Earth Rangers the gateway cause, because we've seen that members who participate are much more likely to not only care about animals and the environment, but also other things like anti-bullying, helping the homeless, feeding the hungry, like just kind of broader, more altruistic feelings and focuses.
What about eco-anxiety? So when we first talked, I guess it was a year or more ago at this point, you brought up this term eco-anxiety with our younger generations. And I had to take a minute because I was like, have I heard about this? Like, is this something that I'm familiar with? Is this something that's really happening? And maybe you could expand more on what eco-anxiety really is, how Earth Rangers defines it or how you define it, and what Earth Rangers is doing to help reduce it.
Yeah, I mean, eco anxiety, even a year ago, I think a lot of people hadn't heard of it. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people still haven't, but it's definitely more prevalent. And I would guess that since we had that conversation, you've probably seen it a lot more. It's really, I think, like just the intersection of climate change / biodiversity loss and mental health is becoming a lot more known and studied, not only in young people, but across all sectors of society. I mean, eco anxiety broadly is defined as concern and fear for the future of the planet and of the world that we live in. It's not pathological, so it's not a diagnosable disorder. It's more like general fear. I think COVID anxiety is kind of would have been a bit similar. It's like just this ongoing sense of dread or concern that can exacerbate maybe potentially other mental health issues or other concerns that you have. But I think a lot of people are feeling it, and how it manifests is very different depending. I mean, there are people out there who have experienced just acute impacts of climate change in the form of a hurricane, forest fire, droughts, flooding, all of those types of things. And then there's just other people who maybe haven't experienced acute impacts, but are just constantly hearing about it and starting to get more and more anxious and worried about the future and what it holds for themselves, for their children, for future generations. And so that's kind of, from a broad perspective, what eco anxiety is. I have been thinking a lot about just, you can see in polling data that people, I think across globally, but it's specifically in Canada and the US, are increasingly concerned about the impacts of climate change and feeling that as an issue, it is more and more urgent. A lot of people would consider it like the most urgent issue, but simultaneously see it increasingly as unsolvable. And that's a really scary place for us to be as a society. You know, when we see something as both urgent and solvable, those are the things that we get done. When we see something as urgent, but we don't know what to do with it, or we feel this kind of paralysis, or we feel like, I mean, there's a term called eco paralysis. And it's kind of this concept that like, you're operating within a system that where it's impossible to make the right decision, where the things that you could do personally to reduce your impact on climate are things that like aren't possible to do, like never visiting your grandparents in Florida, like never getting on a plane. Like that's not something that anyone is going to sacrifice necessarily. But, and so it kind of makes you feel like there is nothing you can do, but that's not true. There are lots of things that we can do. But I think as individuals, we don't want to feel kind of gaslit into thinking that it's all about individual action and that there aren't like other things that governments and corporations and like the systems in which we operate in need to change simultaneously for us to all kind of feel like we're moving in the right direction and that it's worth making those sacrifices.
So right now, what would you say are the major challenges that you're experiencing with Earth Rangers? Is it coming up with these solutions around how to help the next generations combat or overcome what's going on in the environmental space or the sustainability space? Like, what are some of the major challenges, and how is Earth Rangers trying to be part of that solution or opportunity for the next generations?
So at Earth Rangers, we focus a lot on really, I mean, I think there can be an assumption that you know how to interact with the natural world or how to be like a responsible environmental citizen. But those aren't just things that happen from spending time outside and loving nature. You actually have to learn how to act and learn what to do. And that's through like repetitive behavior. I mean, what we're really interested in is figuring out like how do you truly build and change habits so that younger generations act differently than older generations and can also start to impact and kind of see a pass through effect to their parents. And then how can those positive habits contribute to overall kind of well-being and a more positive outlook on the world? For younger kids, it's more about giving them like very kind of concrete actions that they can do where they can immediately kind of see that positive gratification or the positive impact of their actions, whether it's like running a recycling campaign or organizing a cleanup or reducing energy at home. One of the most effective things that we found is also like kids love to feel like they know something that adults don't. So giving them the opportunity to be leaders and to really like teach their parents or families or communities something is also a really effective tactic. I would say success means that kids think about the environment when they're making decisions, that it factors into their decision-making process. Is how will this impact the environment? Is this going to have a positive effect? Is it going to have a negative effect? And then act accordingly and then feel good about it.
In this space for quite a bit of time now, and I've seen this evolution, and you alluded to, we are in a different place now than we were, 15, 20 years ago when Earth Rangers was created. What have you seen in the environmental movement? What has really changed, and has it changed for the better?
Ooh, that's a big question. I mean, I've seen a lot of things. I think the environmental movement is more mainstream. It's also, as a cause, the environment is now impacting every other cause. One example is the environmental sector, at least the charitable environmental sector, has always been a tiny portion of overall charitable contributions in Canada specifically. I'm assuming it's similar in the United States, but I don't have the stats. But in Canada, it's around 1.5 to 3% of charitable donations go to the environment. Now, if you add in like acute natural disasters, like, does that count? I mean, that's caused by, a lot of them are caused or at least exacerbated by climate change. So I think the needs are growing, but the pool of funds are not growing. I think there's a big question for a lot of people around, like, is it possible to have an impact? And that kind of goes back to what I mentioned before, this feeling that these issues are becoming so big that they're potentially unsolvable. And then we talked about eco-anxiety, the intersection with mental health. There's a lot of other kind of societal issues that are now being increasingly impacted by the environment. And so it's kind of broadening, but I'd say that's one thing that I've seen from specifically what Earth Rangers does and environmental education. I mean, I still don't think that as a society, we take it seriously enough. As climate change starts to impact our everyday lives, we're prone to these kind of more acute interventions because it's now urgent. But if we had laid the groundwork and given people the knowledge that they needed, 20, 30 years ago, I genuinely believe we might not be in this situation. Like, the fact that we have to fight tooth and nail around every climate policy, around, investing in mitigation and adaptation. The fact that it's still such a polarizing issue, I think, is like a direct result of a lack of public education and engagement. And that's still happening. I mean, there isn't consistent environmental curriculum or literacy in schools. It's not something that is really a focus for a lot of people and school systems. And so I think that that is something that still needs to change.
To that point, that like the environmental, not just the movement, but climate change and everything that comes with it can feel so large and overwhelming that people have a hard time like grasping onto it. And I think that is part of this issue, that it's not in the curriculum everywhere because it's not as easy as, a coding curriculum and making it really applied. And we haven't figured that out yet. And I think that is like a big future or present issue that we have to overcome.
Speaking of overcome, what would you say are some of the valuable lessons that you've learned with your time with Earth Rangers so far?
I mean, I think that if you look at Earth Rangers, sometimes, it looks like this kind of fluffy, fun, colorful. I think sometimes people don't realize how much thought and really kind of intentionality goes into the development of this program. We're competing for kids' time and attention against a lot of very big companies. And, like, you've got streaming services like entertainment, toys, sports, like a million things that are competing for kids' attention. And Earth Rangers wants a slice of that attention for the environment and for doing something positive for the planet and for the kids themselves. But in order to do that, you have to have a brand and a program that is compelling and that's always innovating. And that's why we do use technology in the way that we do. And, people ask me all the time, well, is an app really kind of counterintuitive to wanting to get kids out into nature? And, technology is not going away. We can't compete if we're not utilizing it. But the app is designed in a way that's specifically, like, it's not a game. You can't just sit there on your screen and play it all day. In order to really earn points, level up, get that gratification, you have to go out into the real world and complete the activities. From the podcast to we have a new version of our school assembly that has like a holographic co-host and is really cool. It's like this kind of AI vibe for the kids. Like, it's all meant for Earth Rangers to be cool and to not, like, a lot of youth serving organizations are struggling now. Like, a lot of brands that were really strong, 20, 30 years ago are not as strong as they were. And we want to make sure that we remain super relevant for kids. And so I think, I've had people say like, oh, Earth Rangers operates more like a a for-profit company than a charity. And I think what they're trying to say is that we're very rigorous, like that we're constantly thinking about what's next. We're constantly developing our programs and our products and making sure that they remain relevant. And so I think that's one of the things that is very unique about Earth Rangers. And one of the things that I've learned is that, kids are tough customers and you can't take anything for granted.
You sure can't. They are tough. We've got a couple between Deborah and I, so we know it's not an easy sell. That's for sure. I would love to hear some advice that you have for our listeners, for those that are on the path to creating impact through their work or a business or activism. Like, what advice do you have for them?
I would say you really need to understanding your audience and like, who are you trying to impact? What are their needs? Like, what is the outcome that you want to get to, but also like, what kind of need are you fulfilling and making sure those things are aligned? Like, you can't make an assumption that what you're doing is just like inherently of interest to people. I think the design thinking can really help with that. We also touched on a couple times just how big of an issue climate change is, but there's a lot of other examples of just some of these kind of existential things that we're dealing with as a society that are equally as big, figuring out how you can start to kind of choose a specific element or start to parse it out to be able to like speak to it in a way where people can wrap their heads around it and understand and be really specific about what you're trying to do. Also kind of determining how you're going to measure your success and your impact in advance, instead of kind of doing the thing and then going back and trying to figure out like, if you were successful, you really need to determine what success looks like in advance. I think all of those things can help.
That is some great advice. And so what's next for Earth Rangers?
What's next? Well, the expansion into the U.S. is ongoing. And obviously, as you can imagine, a huge project. We've really started with a focus on the Great Lakes region, since we're based in Ontario, obviously a part of the Great Lakes region. So the app is available. The Earth Rangers app is available across North America. And we've got members in every state and obviously a ton in Canada, but in terms of expanding the school assemblies into some of those Great Lakes states, that's a big focus. We also have a new teen program. So we're starting to kind of move into a bit of an older demographic. It's around leadership and environmental volunteerism. So that's another focus for us. And then, we continue to invest in research and program development, specifically targeting eco-anxiety and just making sure that the outcomes that kids are getting from the program are really good for the planet and for their mental health. So I would say those are really our priorities.
Tovah, thank you for joining us and for sharing so much in terms of the great work that you're doing with Earth Rangers and your own personal thoughts on what other impact change makers can look for or work on or overcome. I know what you're doing with Earth Rangers is not for the faint of heart, especially as we touched upon, like having kids as your audience. I think that is really tough, especially in this ever-changing world in technology and gaming. I also think the environment is becoming more and more prevalent, and I hate to hear the word eco-anxiety, but I love to think that there are solutions to help reduce it and calm it. I'm excited for what's next. I love that teens are getting involved. I think that is a great way to move forward. And we'll stay tuned and keep a close eye on your social pages and the Earth Ranger website. So yeah, thank you.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
As we wrap up today's episode, we hope you're leaving with some insights, inspiration, and perhaps a spark of an idea. At the core of every story we cover lies the undeniable truth. What truly drives impact is the relentless pursuit of change, paired with a deep commitment to the greater good. We're always reminded that making a mark on the world is not easy and isn't just about breaking through barriers. It's about thinking differently about what impact means in our world and what is possible in creating it. Thank you for joining us on Ideas for Impact, where rebels with a cause redefine the meaning of what is possible. For more episodes that challenge the norm, follow us wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you're interested, dive deeper into our journey at ideasforimpact.ca. Until next time, friends, keep pushing the boundaries of what is possible.